In a galaxy far beyond the reach of human telescopes, where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds and planets spun in perfect harmony, there existed an empire known as Zyrithia. This realm was ruled by Queen Valera, whose beauty was legendary across countless worlds. Her daughter, Princess Lyra, however, often felt out of place among her people. Unlike the symmetrical perfection that defined most Zyrithians, tall, luminous beings with skin that glowed softly under starlight, Lyra had inherited something different from her late father, who hailed from a distant nebula. Her features were striking but unconventional. Eyes that shifted between hues of violet and gold, hair that cascaded in waves of deep indigo streaked with silver threads, and skin that shimmered faintly like moonlit water. To some, she was breathtaking. To others, she was odd. The whispers followed her everywhere. "She's not beautiful like we are," they would say when they thought she couldn't hear, and though she tried to ignore them, those words burrowed into her heart, planting seeds of doubt that grew over time. One day, while exploring one of the many hidden archives within the palace, Lyra stumbled upon an ancient artifact, a crystalline orb pulsating with energy. When she touched it, visions flooded her mind. Images of Earth, a small blue planet teeming with life. Humans fascinated her instantly. They were so unlike anyone she'd ever seen or heard about. Some were tall, others short. Their appearances varied wildly, yet they seemed to radiate warmth and vitality. It intrigued her how humans could find beauty in imperfection, celebrating differences rather than shunning them. Curiosity sparked an idea. If no one on Zyrithia truly understood her, perhaps someone from this strange new world might. But traveling to Earth wasn't easy. Leaving the safety of her home required more than just courage. It demanded secrecy. So, cloaked in invisibility, Lyra slipped away aboard a sleek reconnaissance ship designed for stealth missions. She programmed the coordinates for Earth, feeling both excitement and trepidation as the craft broke through the atmosphere of her homeworld. The journey took days, during which Lyra spent hours gazing at the approaching planet through the cockpit window. Its swirling clouds and vast oceans mesmerized her. Finally, after what felt like forever, she landed in a secluded forest on Earth's northern hemisphere, far from prying eyes. As soon as she stepped outside, the air hit her senses differently, richer, heavier, tinged with scents she couldn't name. Birds chirped overhead, leaves rustled in the breeze, and sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the ground. It didn't take long for Lyra to realize she needed help navigating this unfamiliar world. That's when she met him. Kale was hiking alone, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, headphones dangling around his neck. He looked up just as Lyra emerged cautiously from behind a tree. Startled, he froze, staring at her glowing form. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, with a sheepish grin, Kale said, "Well, I guess Bigfoot isn't the only thing hiding in these woods." Kale's easygoing nature disarmed Lyra almost immediately. Though initially wary, she found herself drawn to his calm demeanor and quick wit. Over the next few weeks, he became her guide to all things earthly, teaching her everything from basic language skills to cultural norms. In return, she shared stories of Zyrithia, careful to omit details that might reveal too much about her origins. Their bond deepened quickly, fueled by shared laughter and moments of quiet understanding. One evening, as they sat beside a crackling campfire, Lyra finally voiced the insecurity that had haunted her for years. "I'm not beautiful like human women," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the snapping flames. Kale tilted his head, studying her face intently before responding. "I don't care," he said simply, his tone leaving no room for argument. His words struck her like a meteor, knocking loose the doubts she'd carried for so long. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day, but danger lurked closer than either of them realized. Unbeknownst to Lyra, her disappearance hadn't gone unnoticed back on Zyrithia. Queen Valera, furious at her daughter's defiance, dispatched a squadron of elite guards to retrieve her. Meanwhile, Earth itself posed its own challenges. Strange occurrences began happening wherever Lyra went: electrical storms without warning, animals behaving erratically, even crops wilting overnight. Scientists scrambled to explain the phenomena, while conspiracy theories spread like wildfire online. Back in the forest, Kale noticed subtle changes in Lyra. Her glow intensified, and sometimes objects near her would float inexplicably. Concerned, he confronted her, demanding answers. Reluctantly, she confessed everything: who she was, where she came from, and why she'd come to Earth. Kale listened silently, processing the enormity of her revelation. When she finished, tears streaming down her cheeks, he reached out and took her hand. "You're still you," he said firmly. "That hasn't changed." But their secret relationship wasn't destined to remain peaceful for long. One night, as they walked along a deserted beach, the sky lit up with unnatural colors. A massive spaceship descended rapidly, forcing them to flee into the nearby woods. Hidden among the trees, Lyra watched in horror as armored figures emerged, scanning the area with advanced technology. "They found me," she breathed, gripping Kale's arm tightly. Panic surged through her, but Kale remained steady. "We'll figure this out," he promised, though his voice betrayed a flicker of fear. As the soldiers closed in, Lyra made a split-second decision. Grabbing Kale's hand, she activated a concealed device on her wrist, a teleportation beacon. In an instant, they vanished, reappearing miles away in a bustling city. Disoriented but alive, they ducked into an alleyway, catching their breath. "What now?" Kale asked, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Lyra hesitated, torn between returning to Zyrithia and staying on Earth with him. Before she could answer, a deafening roar echoed through the streets, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Turning slowly, they saw a towering mechanical creature stomping toward them, its eyes glowing red with malice. Without hesitation, Lyra stepped forward, raising her hands. Energy crackled around her fingertips, forming a protective barrier. Kale stood beside her, clutching a makeshift weapon scavenged from a nearby trash bin. Together, they braced themselves for whatever came next, united by love and determination. Sparks flew, both literal and metaphorical. The mechanical monstrosity loomed over them, its metallic limbs creaking with every step. Lyra's barrier flickered as she struggled to maintain it against the creature's relentless advance. Kale, though clearly out of his depth, didn't hesitate. He hurled the makeshift weapon, a jagged piece of rebar, at one of the glowing red eyes. It bounced harmlessly off the machine's armored surface, but the distraction gave Lyra enough time to strengthen her shield. "Any bright ideas?" Kale shouted, ducking behind a dumpster as sparks rained down from the collapsing barrier. Lyra clenched her fists, her mind racing. She had never been trained for combat. Her life on Zyrithia had been sheltered, filled with diplomatic ceremonies and royal duties. But desperation ignited something within her. Her arms began to glow brighter, the energy swirling around her like liquid starlight. With a fierce cry, she unleashed a concentrated beam of light that struck the creature squarely in its chest. The impact sent it stumbling backward, its balance disrupted. Kale gawked at her, momentarily forgetting the chaos around them. "Okay, yeah, you're definitely not human." Before Lyra could respond, the ground trembled again. Another roar echoed through the city, this one deeper and angrier. Turning their heads, they saw not one but 3 more machines emerging from the shadows of towering skyscrapers. Each was larger than the last, their movements synchronized as if controlled by a single malevolent force. "We can't fight all of them," Kale exclaimed, grabbing Lyra's arm. "We need to run." Reluctantly, Lyra nodded. They sprinted through the labyrinthine alleys, dodging debris and panicked civilians who screamed at the sight of the rampaging machines. Behind them, the creatures pursued relentlessly, smashing through walls and vehicles with ease. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning metal. As they rounded a corner, Kale skidded to a halt. A dead end. The alley terminated in a chain-link fence topped with razor wire, blocking their escape. Lyra spun around, her hands already glowing as she prepared to face the inevitable confrontation. But Kale grabbed her wrist, pulling her back. "No," he said firmly. "Not yet. Trust me." He pointed to a nearby fire escape ladder dangling precariously above their heads. Without waiting for her response, he jumped, catching the lowest rung with surprising agility. Grunting with effort, he climbed high enough to reach the rooftop. Once there, he leaned over the edge and extended his hand to Lyra. She hesitated only for a moment before leaping upward. Her fingers brushed his, and with a final surge of strength, Kale pulled her onto the roof just as the first machine crashed into the alley below. Its head swung wildly, searching for its prey, but unable to scale the vertical walls. For a brief moment, they allowed themselves to breathe. Lyra sank to her knees, exhaustion etched across her face. Kale sat beside her, his chest heaving as he tried to steady his breathing. "What are those things?" he asked, glancing nervously at the edge of the roof where the machines continued their destructive rampage. I don't know, Lyra admitted, shaking her head. But I think they're connected to why my mother sent guards after me. Kale frowned. You mean your mom did this? She sicked giant robots on us? Lyra sighed. It's complicated. My disappearance has caused unrest back home. People are questioning her leadership, blaming her for letting me leave. These machines, they might be some kind of test or punishment. Or maybe... She trailed off, her expression darkening. Maybe someone else is involved. Her words hung heavy in the air. Before either of them could dwell on the implications, a sharp whirring noise drew their attention skyward. Hovering above them was a sleek, black drone, its lens-like eye scanning the rooftop. It emitted a high-pitched beep before darting away, presumably to report their location. They know we're here, Kale muttered, standing up quickly. We need to move. They scrambled across the rooftops, leaping between buildings and using makeshift bridges formed by clotheslines and scaffolding. Below, the machines resumed their pursuit, smashing through anything that stood in their way. The destruction was catastrophic. Entire blocks reduced to rubble, fires spreading unchecked. Civilians fled in terror, unaware of the otherworldly drama unfolding above their heads. At one point, Lyra slipped, her foot catching on a loose shingle. Kale caught her just in time, yanking her back onto solid footing. For a heartbeat, they locked eyes, their faces inches apart. Despite the chaos surrounding them, there was an undeniable connection, a spark that refused to be extinguished. You saved me, Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. You saved me first, Kale replied with a wry smile. Guess we're even. Their respite was short-lived. As they reached the edge of the city, the horizon lit up with the unmistakable glow of another spaceship descending. This one was smaller and sleeker than the military vessel that had chased them earlier. When it landed, a figure emerged. A tall, imposing man clad in shimmering silver armor. His presence commanded attention, his piercing gaze sweeping the area until it landed on Lyra. Princess, he called, his voice resonating with authority. Your mother demands your return. Lyra stepped forward, her resolve hardening. I'm not going back, she declared, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. The soldier raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Your defiance will only bring further destruction. Surrender now, and I may spare your companion. Kale stepped up beside her, squaring his shoulders. Over my dead body. The soldier smirked, drawing a weapon that hummed with lethal energy. As you wish. Before anyone could make a move, a deafening explosion rocked the ground beneath them. One of the machines had detonated nearby, sending a shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet. Seizing the opportunity, Lyra grabbed Kale's hand and bolted toward the woods on the outskirts of the city. The soldier shouted orders into a communicator, but the confusion created by the blast gave them precious seconds to escape. Once hidden among the trees, they collapsed against a mossy log, gasping for air. Lyra's mind raced. They couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they'd be cornered. And then what? There has to be a way to stop those things, Kale said, breaking the silence. If they're machines, they must have a weak spot, right? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, but finding it won't be easy. We'd need access to their control systems, or better yet, whoever's controlling them. A thought occurred to her, and she turned to Kale with newfound determination. There's someone who might help us. Someone I trust. Who? Kale asked, curiosity piqued. My uncle, Lyra replied. He's exiled, living on the fringes of Zyrithian space. If anyone knows how to deal with this kind of technology, it's him. Kale raised an eyebrow. And how do we get to him without getting blown up or captured? Lyra smiled faintly. Leave that part to me. Using the teleportation beacon once more, they vanished from Earth, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of the city. Their destination, a remote asteroid colony on the edge of known space, where Lyra hoped answers and allies awaited them. But as they materialized aboard the crumbling station, they realized they weren't alone. Shadows moved in the corners of the room, and a familiar voice echoed through the dimly lit chamber. Well, it drawled. Look who decided to drop in. Lyra stiffened, recognizing the speaker instantly. It was Commander Veyron, her mother's most ruthless enforcer, and someone she hadn't seen since childhood. His cold grin sent chills down her spine. This just got a lot more complicated, Kale muttered under his breath. Commander Veyron stepped into the light, his silver armor glinting ominously. His presence was suffocating, a looming storm cloud that seemed to drain the air from the room. Lyra instinctively moved in front of Kale, shielding him with her body as if she could somehow protect him from what was coming. "Princess," Veron said, his tone dripping with mockery, "you've caused quite the spectacle. Do you have any idea how many resources your little escapade has wasted?" Lyra clenched her fists, trying to steady her voice. "I didn't ask for any of this. All I wanted was freedom. To see the universe. To understand who I am beyond being the odd princess of Zyrithia." Veron chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "Freedom? You're a royal heir, Lyra. Your life belongs to Zyrithia, not some rogue human or backwater planets." He turned his gaze toward Kale, his eyes narrowing. "And you? What exactly do you think you're doing with her? Don't you realize she's out of your league? Out of your world?" Kale straightened, refusing to be intimidated despite the obvious danger. "Maybe so," he shot back, his voice firm, "but at least I care about her for who she is, not what she looks like or where she comes from." For a moment there was silence. Even Veron looked taken aback by Kale's boldness. Then, slowly, the commander's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Brave words for someone who's about to die." Before anyone could react, Veron raised his hand, and a shimmering energy blade materialized in his grip. He lunged forward with terrifying speed, aiming directly for Kale. But Lyra was faster. She threw herself between them, her own powers flaring to life. A burst of radiant energy erupted from her palms, slamming into Veron and sending him staggering backward. "Don't touch him," Lyra shouted, her voice laced with fury she didn't know she possessed. Veron recovered quickly, brushing off the attack as though it were nothing more than an inconvenience. "Impressive," he sneered, "but you'll need more than parlor tricks to stop me." Kale grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her back. "We can't fight him here," he whispered urgently. "He's too strong." Lyra hesitated, torn between standing her ground and retreating. Her uncle's station was their only hope of finding answers, but confronting Veron now would only get them killed. Reluctantly, she nodded. Together, they bolted deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the asteroid colony, Veron hot on their heels. The chase led them through narrow passageways lined with rusted metal walls and flickering fluorescent lights. Every step echoed loudly, making it impossible to tell how close Veron was. At one point, Lyra tripped over a loose floor panel, nearly falling flat on her face. Kale caught her just in time, hoisting her back up without missing a beat. "You okay?" he asked, concern etched across his face. She nodded, though her breathing was ragged. "Just keep moving." Finally, they reached a heavy steel door marked with faded symbols neither of them recognized. Lyra placed her hand against the surface, and it hummed softly in response. The door slid open with a groan, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with strange devices and holographic displays. Standing in the center of the room was a man who looked strikingly similar to Lyra, tall, with indigo hair streaked with silver, though his features bore the weariness of years spent in exile. "Uncle Solon?" Lyra breathed, relief washing over her. Solon turned to face them, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he simply stared at Lyra, as if trying to reconcile the young woman before him with the child he remembered. Then, finally, he spoke. "You shouldn't have come here." Before Lyra could respond, Veron burst into the room, his weapon crackling with energy. "Enough games," he snarled. "Hand her over, Solon, and maybe I'll let you live." Solon crossed his arms, unimpressed. "Still following orders, I see. Tell me, Veron, does Valera even know what she's unleashed? Or are you just another pawn in her endless power plays?" Veron's jaw tightened. "Watch your tongue, exile. You're in no position to lecture me." While the two men exchanged barbs, Lyra noticed something peculiar about the devices scattered around the room. They pulsed faintly, synchronized with the rhythm of her heartbeat. It was as if they were responding to her presence. She glanced at Solon, realization dawning. "These machines, they're yours, aren't they?" she asked quietly. "You built them." Solon nodded grimly. "Yes, they were designed to protect Zyrithia from external threats. But someone tampered with them, twisted their programming. Now they're weapons of destruction instead of defense. And you know who did it?" Lyra pressed. Solon hesitated, then sighed. "It wasn't Valera, at least, not directly. There's a faction within the Empire that opposes her rule. They've been using these machines to destabilize her authority, hoping to seize control themselves. So my disappearance, it's all part of their plan," Lyra concluded, piecing it together. They used me as bait to draw her out, to make her look weak. Precisely, Solon confirmed. But if we don't act soon, the entire galaxy will suffer the consequences. As if on cue, the ground shook violently, knocking everyone off balance. Through the viewport behind Solon, they saw one of the massive mechanical creatures hurtling toward the asteroid, its red eyes blazing with malice. "We're out of time," Kale said, gripping Lyra's hand tightly. "What's the plan?" Solon strode over to a console and began typing furiously. "There's a failsafe, a master override code that can shut down all the machines, but activating it requires direct access to their central core. Unfortunately, that core is currently embedded inside one of those behemoths." Lyra squared her shoulders, determination hardening her features. "Then that's where we're going." "No," Solon snapped, turning to face her. "It's suicide. Let me handle it. I'm the one who created them. I'll fix my mistake." Lyra shook her head. "This isn't just your responsibility anymore. It's mine too, and I'm not letting anyone else sacrifice themselves for me." Kale stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. "Besides, you're gonna need backup. 2 heads and sets of hands are better than 1. Solon studied them both for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but listen carefully. The core is located in the chest cavity of the largest machine. You'll need to disable its shielding first, which means getting inside. Use this." He handed Lyra a small device resembling a crystalline dagger. "It's attuned to your energy signature. Only you can activate it." Veyron, who had been silently observing the exchange, suddenly lunged at them again. This time, however, Solon was ready. With a swift motion, he activated a force field that repelled the commander, sending him crashing into a nearby wall. "You won't stop them, Veyron," Solon said coldly. "Whatever happens next, it ends today." With no time to waste, Lyra, Kale, and Solon raced toward the docking bay, where a sleek fighter craft awaited. As they boarded, the asteroid shuddered violently, chunks of debris breaking loose and floating away into space. Behind them, Veyron staggered to his feet, his expression livid. "This isn't over," he growled, watching as the ship launched into the void. The journey to the machine's location was fraught with tension. Lyra gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white as she navigated through swarms of smaller drones sent to intercept them. Kale manned the secondary turret, blasting away at anything that got too close. Despite the chaos, they worked seamlessly together, their bond growing stronger with each passing second. When they finally reached the colossal creature, Lyra guided the ship into a precarious landing on its armored back. The surface was uneven and slick, making every step treacherous. Using grappling hooks provided by Solon, they anchored themselves to the machine and began their ascent toward the glowing core visible through cracks in its plating. As they climbed, the machine seemed to sense their presence. Panels shifted, revealing hidden turrets that fired relentlessly at them. Lyra deflected the shots with bursts of energy, while Kale covered her, shouting encouragement whenever she faltered. "Just a little farther," he yelled over the din of explosions. Finally, they reached the core. Lyra inserted the crystalline dagger into a slot on the casing, and the world around them went still. The machine froze mid-motion, its systems shutting down. But their victory was short-lived. A low hum began to build, growing louder and more menacing by the second. The core was destabilizing, threatening to explode and take the entire machine, and everything nearby with it. "There's no time to escape," Kale shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Lyra turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "Go," she whispered. "I'll hold it off. Get as far away as you can." Kale grabbed her shoulders, shaking his head fiercely. "No way. We're in this together, remember?" Before either of them could argue further, a brilliant flash of light enveloped them, and the world dissolved into chaos. The brilliant flash of light blinded them momentarily, and when it faded, Lyra and Kale found themselves back aboard Solon's ship. The massive machine they had been climbing was now a crumbling wreck, its core completely inert. Breathing heavily, they stared at each other in disbelief. We did it," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling with relief and exhaustion. Kale grinned, pulling her into a tight embrace. "Told you we'd figure it out." But their celebration was interrupted by the sound of an incoming transmission. On the view screen appeared Queen Valera herself, her regal presence commanding even through the static of the communication line. Her expression was unreadable as she gazed at her daughter. "Lyra," she began. her tone softer than either of them expected. I see you've survived yet again. Lyra straightened, steeling herself for another confrontation. Mother, No, Valera interrupted, raising a hand to silence her. Let me speak first. For too long, I have judged you based on what others expect of you, rather than who you truly are. Watching you face these trials has shown me that your strength lies not in conforming to our standards, but in embracing your uniqueness. Tears welled up in Lyra's eyes as she listened, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. Valera continued, her gaze shifting briefly to Kale before returning to her daughter. And this human, he has proven himself worthy of standing beside you. His courage, loyalty, and love for you cannot be denied. Perhaps it is time I let go of my fears and trust that you know what is best for yourself. Kale glanced at Lyra, his heart swelling with gratitude and admiration for the woman who had changed his life forever. Thank you, Mother, Lyra said softly, her voice choked with emotion. That means more to me than you can imagine. Queen Valera nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. You have my blessing, Lyra. Both of you. Go where your hearts lead, and may your journey bring you joy. With that, the transmission ended, leaving Lyra and Kale alone in stunned silence. It wasn't just acceptance, it was freedom. Freedom to choose their own path without fear or judgment. Months later, the galaxy celebrated the union of Princess Lyra of Zyrithia and Kale, the brave human who had captured her heart. The ceremony took place on a breathtaking moon orbiting one of Zyrithia's outer planets, its crystalline surface shimmering under twin suns. Guests from across the stars gathered to witness the historic event, including dignitaries, warriors, and even a few curious Earth representatives. Dressed in flowing robes adorned with constellations that seemed to dance in the light, Lyra walked down the aisle flanked by her uncle Solon, who had become a trusted ally once again. Kale stood at the altar, dressed in formal attire tailored specifically for the occasion, looking every bit the hero he had proven himself to be. As they exchanged vows, their love radiated so brightly that even the most skeptical attendees were moved to tears. When the officiant pronounced them bonded for life, cheers erupted throughout the venue, echoing across the cosmos. In the years that followed, Lyra and Kale built a life together that blended the best of both their worlds. They settled on a lush planet near the edge of Zyrithian space, where rolling green hills met sparkling oceans under skies painted with endless stars. Lyra used her influence to promote peace and understanding between species, while Kale became an ambassador of sorts, bridging the gap between humans and extraterrestrials. Their family grew quickly, blessed with 3 children who inherited traits from both parents. Their eldest, a boy named Orion, had Kale's adventurous spirit and Lyra's glowing eyes. Their middle child, a girl named Nova, possessed a knack for engineering inherited from her father and her mother's shimmering skin. And their youngest, a mischievous toddler named Luna, could already summon tiny bursts of energy, much to everyone's delight and occasional dismay. Life wasn't without its challenges, of course. Balancing their responsibilities as leaders and parents kept them busy, but they faced every obstacle together, leaning on the unbreakable bond they shared. Even Queen Valera softened further over time, often visiting her grandchildren and marveling at how much joy they brought into her life. One evening, as the family gathered around a crackling fire beneath a canopy of stars, Lyra leaned into Kale's arms, watching their children playfully chase fireflies. You know, she said, her voice filled with contentment, when I first came to Earth, I never imagined all of this would happen. Kale kissed the top of her head, smiling. Neither did I, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Hand in hand, surrounded by love and laughter, they looked toward the future, knowing that no matter what adventures lay ahead, they would face them together. As equals, as partners, and as soulmates destined to shine brighter than any star in the galaxy. And so, their story became legend. A tale of courage, acceptance, and the power of love to transcend boundaries, uniting 2 worlds in harmony.